Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, you could go to the. I mean, yeah, you could go on the colonization. I mean, it's. I'm sure they send bears to space. I mean, I guess they do.
Join the team.
Hey team, this is the McGuire Review, and today we're going to be taking a look at a brand new one from the Grand Gamers Guild. Hasn't even hit Kickstarter yet, but will soon, so let's lock in and get ready to go. Alright team, the Artemis Project is a brand new one coming to us from the Grand Gamers Guild. Again, we got Daryl Chow and Daniel Rochi on this one as the designers. This is a 12 plus 2 to 4 and 60-minute game, and I love that about this title, that you can get this in within that 60-minute mark. It's got lots of really cool mechanics. We're going to talk about all those here in just a minute. But let's first talk about when you can get your hands on this. So it is coming to Kickstarter on September the 12th. So be watching for that. That's what they've communicated so far. Bear, here, hold this for me. Thanks, buddy. So on September the 12th, they're going to be hitting Kickstarter, and we should be able to get our hands on this awesome game. So what is the Artemis Project all about? That's one of the things that I really like about this game that really draws me in and makes me want to play this game. I'm a sucker for the space themes and things of that nature. So anything that's got that type of theme generally will pull me in. But this one executes on the mechanics really well as has that awesome deep space kind of theme to it. So what's going on, right? You're colonizing and you're traveling to one of Jupiter's moons named Europa. And you may know about Europa, but it is a planet that they have said that there may be life there. There's conditions there that it could potentially have life there in actual reality. But for this game, we have traveled here as a human race, and we are colonizing Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter. So I love that theme. It does have some reality and some true backing to it and some things that we're currently exploring as humankind. But at the same time, it integrates that in a really, really good game. All right, so what we'll do is we'll go around and we'll kind of set this board up. And you'll see it's a nice small form factor, which is another thing that I really like. It does have 6 different areas or things you'll be able to do when it's your turn as a player. So we'll go ahead and we'll set this board up, and then we're going to go through and play a full round and show what that looks like, so you got a good feel for how this game plays out. All right, and then we'll just kind of take a look at the various mechanics and components as we go through that. I think that's the way that we'll do this particular video. Now you will notice that we do have some yellow dice and some other little items up here. They're just some extra components that came with the prototype. Again, this is a 100% prototype version of this game. This is not production in any way. It hasn't even hit Kickstarter yet. So I'm sure we're going to see some changes and some tweaks along the way. And you will see that there are some errors printed on this board with the prototype edition that differ a little bit from the rule set we're going to be using as we go through and we play. So if you catch something where you're like, hey, it says that it's more than what you put down there. Well, there are some errors in the printing of the prototype. We'll just ignore those for now because, again, it is a prototype, okay? It is a 4-player game as well. That's why we got the yellow dice up there. The board is down on the ground. We just don't have it up on the table. So let's go ahead and set this board up. So the first area that we're going to look at, and we'll use this little marker here when we go through and we activate all our actions. We'll just leave it there for now. The first area is going to be our expeditions. So that's one of the things that our colonists and our pioneers can do when it's a player's turn. They can go on an expedition. So you put out 1 expedition per player -1. So we're going to take this here and we're going to say 1, 2, 3, but then -1. So here's our 2 expeditions that we're going to put out for this game round. And I'll show you these real quick here. We'll just use this one here for example. So you can see every one of them is going to look exactly the same. You're going to have a number up top, and that's going to be the number that you have to accomplish in pips on the dice to be able to successfully go on this expedition and complete it. If you can't get that number, then you're not going to be able to successfully complete it, and you'll get some relief, and we'll talk about that here in a second. At the bottom, you're going to have 2 different types of rewards that you'll be able to get if you successfully complete this expedition. Basically, if you're the only player that goes on the expedition, you'll be able to get both of those rewards. Otherwise, you'll get one of them if you're the top die pip count, and someone else will get the other one. That'll be the second top pip die. Now, there may be more players that go on that expedition, and they can successfully complete the expedition, gaining an expedition badge, but they won't get one of these rewards. They'll then have to go to the relief track, and again, we'll talk about that here in a second. It's just a way to kind of give you a little bit of something if you fail in any of these things that you're going for, and that's a really nice balance. I'm glad they actually added that relief track. We'll talk more about that. Right? So that's how these expeditions are going to work. It's very easy. So we got those set up. We're ready to go. We're now going to go to 2 and 3. Well, 2 and 3 are really the resources in the game. You have energy and you have minerals. The minerals are going to come from this area right here, and the energy are going to come from this area right here. The vents is what it's called. And you're going to roll these black dice with the gold pips, and you're going to go roll 1 die for each player. It is a 4-player game. That's why you will see this extra one here sitting out. But we have 1 die per player that we're going to be able to roll. All right, so we will roll this, and we're going to get the overhead up here in a second. Bear's going to load it up for us once we actually get to the game board and we start talking a little bit more about it and how it plays out. So we're going to roll this, and what we're going to do is we're going to add these up, and we're going to start with the energy, and it does have to be a minimum. So there is needing to be in this area for each round at least 2 energy per player, so 2, 4, 6. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're good. If we didn't get at least 6, we would just put out 6. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, we'll now go to the minerals. We'll roll, and whoa, that's a big roll. Nice. So we got 6 and 5, which is 11, 12, 13. Okay, lots of minerals coming out on this first round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. How many we have? 11, 12, 13. All right, so we got it. So there we have our minerals out, and that's how that's going to work. We'll talk about the mechanic of the dice placing here because it's really done. It's a very nice mechanic of how you place dice and how those dice interact with one another and might move around. And the doorstep, this area right up top, we'll get there in a second, works the same way as our resources do. You're really going to see that play out when we do our playthrough here of round 1. All right, let's go to the next area, which is number 4 here, which is called the gantry. And this is where you're going to be able to get buildings both above and below the moon of Jupiter, Europa, where you're settling. So there's some things going on in the ocean down here below, some things going on up above, and there's different buildings for those. For rounds 1, 2, and 3, and there are 6 rounds over the course of the game. So for round 1, 2, and 3, you're going to be utilizing these underground oceanic buildings, and for rounds 4, 5, and 6, you're going to go for the above ground buildings. And those building types are a little bit different in the way they interact with the game. So it's nice that half the game you're kind of using one type, and the other half you're using the other type. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look and we're going to see, okay, how many of these do we need to put out? Now, again, the board is going to indicate and be printed on the board pretty much most between your player board and the board, telling you what you need to do and what you need to put out there round to round, because those things do have to be consistent and you have to remember how many there are. For the gantry, it's going to be 1 per player plus 1. So that's going to be 4 for us. So we're going to go here and we're going to draw 4 buildings. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Put that one back, and we're going to flip these over, and we're going to put these up, and that will now show us what we have available for this first round. Now, anything that doesn't get purchased up or bought or consumed will stay on the board, and you will continue to add to that round to round. Now, there are maxes, and it will indicate that on the board here as well. There's only 8 buildings that are able to be out at one time. Your doorstep, where colonists actually fly in on this spaceship here, and you can pick them up, then take them into your shelters and or train them up and give them different skills and abilities. There's 12 that can be max here. So let's just go right to the doorstep. Here what we're going to do is it's going to be 1 per player plus 2. Now, that's a little bit different than what it's printed on the board. We talked because if it's a prototype edition, there are some things that happened in printing. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to draw those out. Let's see how many I got here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so that's a good draw. We got a couple engineers. Those are the blues. We got a military. That's a red. And these purples I like to refer to as kind of peacekeepers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, that's all the colonists that are going to land here for this round in the doorstep, which is going to be 1 per player plus 2. We're now going to move to 6, which is the academy. This is where you can actually take pioneers, and they are the brown cubes, and you will start with one pioneer. And there are more pioneers here in the bag that you'll draw out randomly each round to join and come in from Earth and land on Europa. You can train those pioneers into various different skill classes. So again, we have kind of our peacekeepers, our military, as well as our engineers. And you'll need those specific different types of skills in your colonists to be able to be successful in the game. Some of the buildings to activate their abilities and to be fully staffed will require certain types of colonists, as well as when you go on expeditions, you can use colonists to benefit yourself or actually hurt another player when you go on an expedition. So those colonists are going to be used for various different things in the game. All right, and that's all 6 of the things that we're going to be able to go to. There is this last thing right here in the middle of the board, and this is an area to get tools. Now, tools are very special because they actually can modify the pips on a die. They can send them up or they can send them down. And Bear, you may say, why would you ever want to send a pip on a die down? Well, the reason is because some of these areas, much like the doorstep and the academy, will only allow you to do certain things when you put a die there, depending on what that pip value is. And it will dictate that right here on the player board. So this area here is something where during the turn, if a player wanted to just put their die there, they don't have to wait until all the dice are played. It is an immediate action, and they can immediately take either 1 or 2 tools, depending on what the value of that die is. And they can use that tool over the course of that round. That may be why they would want to do that. But again, you're giving up one of your dice in one of those other main 6 areas. So there is a give and take there if you want to use one to immediately gain tools. You can get tools other ways by the use of buildings. You can get tools by going on expeditions. As this one here, if we were to be the winner, we can get 4 tools. If we were the number 1 winner of that expedition. So there are other ways to get tools in the game. You don't have to spend a die to get it here. It's only if you just need it immediately and you want to go for it. Okay, the last thing that we need to do is set the event for the round. This is another mechanic that I really like. Every round there's going to be a different event that's going to happen on the planet of Europa. And there will be more than 6 of these. You will only take random 6 and you'll shuffle those up and put them down because there's only 6 rounds in the game and you'll have a different event for each round. What's nice about this event mechanic is it doesn't just say, hey, this is the event for the game round and it affects everything. How it works is this event, when it's chosen, and we'll go ahead and do that. So we'll flip the top one over. Okay, on this event, and they're all going to look the same. It's going to have some cool artwork at the top. It's going to have a letter in pink that's going to correspond to the little pink letters that are on this board. And then it's going to have some flavor text to tell you what that event does. So let's read this one. It's called the Hailstorm. This one's actually pretty brutal. It says the atmosphere here had a tendency to form hailstones bigger than your head, bigger than Bear's head, and they wreak havoc, cracking with static electricity as they fell. The players with the most dice in the gantry and the players with the most dice in the doorstep lose 3 resources. So we're going to need to think about that as players over the course of this round. Do we want to put dice in here with the buildings, and do we want to put dice here in the doorstep? Because if we have the most dice within those areas, we're going to lose 3 resources. Well, maybe there's some really good buildings out, and we definitely want to get one of those buildings. Well, that means we might want to bulk up on some resources first. And you'll see how when we play this out, that it does take a logical path around these 6 items, which is another thing that I like. And you'll see the programming aspect of this game. So here is our event. So we're going to put that right there, and then we're going to use this little pink cylinder token, and we're going to place that right on D, which is going to indicate to us that when we get to the execution phase of the actions, we're going to know when we get to 4 and we get to the gantry, that's when we're going to have to put into effect this event. So you can see that it's really cool that you're going to have to deal with a different event for every round of the game, and that event is going to play out in a different area of the planet every round, and that's going to be random. I absolutely love that event mechanic. They really did a nice job with that, and it adds a lot of fun and flavor to the game. Okay, so you can see what we've got here, right? We've got an innovative worker placement. we've got a dice game. We also have a programming game. And I want to call that out because I want to make sure that that's clear, that it's not just worker placement and dice rolls. You're also programming it out. And what I mean by that is when you play through a round, the first thing all the players are going to do, one by one, is you're going to be placing dice around this board in various different things and actions that you want to do. And you're going to place all those dice first. Then you're going to go through and you're going to activate each one of those areas all the way around the board. And because of that setup and design, you really have to think round to round. And again, every round's going to be different because the event's going to be somewhere different. The different amount of resources are going to come out. Different amount of things are going to be available in each one of these areas. So you really have to deal with what you have round to round. I love that as well. So it's that strategy of this round, this is what's available. Deal with it, right? And make the best use of what's on the board. And you have to really program and think out how things would execute around that track. If you're going to do some things over here that you may not have the proper amount of resources yet for, like let's say you don't have a pioneer yet, but you put a die here. You can do that. But you better make sure that you pick up a pioneer at the doorstep before you get to this area. Or let's say that you need to get here and pick up, let's say you want to pick up 1 to 3 different colonists, and you have the die that will allow you to do that. But you don't have enough energy because every time you pick up a colonist, you got to pay 2 energy. And you don't have enough. Well, you better bulk up and get that energy here in this section before you get to that doorstep. So I really like how that works. You can think about what you want to do, you can program it out, and you also can take a little bit of risk. And that actually is a lot of fun because it doesn't always work out in your favor, even if you think maybe you're going to get it. And that's in the great mechanic of how these dice work, specifically in these 3 areas where you get your resources as well as a doorstep. Okay? So let's go ahead and show how this would start up. We do have these mats set up properly. Everybody's going to start with a pioneer. You're going to start with 3 resources. There's going to be various ways at the end when you win. Once the 6 rounds are over, the game would end. You're going to have a victory point tracker right here. We're going to get victory points over the course of the game for each one of the players. You're going to take that, plus there's a multitude of things that you can do to get more different types of victory points. Like you're going to get victory points for stored energy. So after you have 5 energy or 5 resources, you can move those over and then put them in these little 3 boxes. You only can do 3, but they're called stored energy. For every one of those you have, you do get victory points. You get victory points for sets, collecting sets of different types of colonists. You get victory points for going on the most expeditions, for having the most tools, for having the most types of buildings. So there's all different ways to get victory points. They're all listed right here on the card. You'll take that and you'll add that to your victory point track here. Whoever has the most victory points is going to be the winner of the game. Now this board is also going to have a section to store your tools, store your badges for going on expeditions. It's going to have a little section here. It's going to tell you exactly how each one of those colonists work. We talked about how colonists will actually affect your expeditions that you go on. If you take certain type of colonists on those expeditions, that'll be listed right here. You got a little spot to just generally put people in your shelter, and then you have 2 areas here to build oceanic as well as above ground buildings off of your shelter, and you can just build those buildings out off of it. So you got that building aspect as well as you acquire buildings and you staff those buildings. That's pretty fun as well. I really get excited about this game, Bears, because I don't know, the theme, the fun, the dice, the programming, it's got it all, team. All right, this is a fun one, and it's small form factor, which I really like as well. So again, I don't know what this is going to look like once it hits production. It hasn't even hit Kickstarter yet. September the 12th. Remember that date, write it down. You're going to want to check this one out. But I do really like this small form factor as well. You got a lot going on here in a fairly small package. And you saw the box, Bear, thank you. It's a pretty small box as well. You can see that. Again, prototype box. Bear, hold this. Thank you. All right, first thing we're going to do for each player, and I'm going to just leave these here because I rolled them, but just to show you, you're going to grab these dice, first thing, and you're going to roll them. That's going to be your roll for this round, and you're going to put that out in front of you, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're just going to start playing. So, green player. Now, I can put dice anywhere I want when I'm placing dice. When we get to the phase where we execute those actions, that will go in order around the track. So let's see what green's strategy is going to be. Okay. These expeditions are looking pretty good. I got a 6. Only need 4 more to meet that, and I could meet it myself, but I bet someone else is going to go on this expedition as well, and I have a 6, which is the highest amount, and I'll be the first die placed. So if there are any ties, I'll get my choice of the rewards. So you know what? I'm going to go there because I want those 4 tools available on there. So I'm going to take one of my dice. I'm going to put it right there on that card. And that's going to give me a very, very good chance to succeed on this expedition. Okay? It's now the blue player's turn. Now the blue player is going to want to bulk up on some energy because maybe the blue player is going to want to pick up some of these folks at the doorstep. They might even want, you know what? The blue player may even want to train up that pioneer. Now, here's what's special about the academy. You only have 2 spots on the academy. And we have 3 players as a minimum, so someone's not going to be able to do that. So if that fills up, it's done. Especially in a 4-player game, only 2 players are going to be able to do it. So I'm going to look here. What do I want to do? Well, I'm going to look at the buildings. You know what? This manufactory is really nice. I'm going to go for that. But I need 2 engineers. Okay, I can train this as an engineer, get one there, and maybe I hit the doorstep up, but I might need some energy. All right, that's going to be the blue player strategy. So I want an engineer, which is a 1 or a 2. I got a 1. Perfect. I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to bring my pioneer over, and he will be trained up as a scientist. Perfect. All right, red. What's red want to do? You know what? Red is just going to go all in for, I'm going for tools. So I got 6. I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to immediately take 2 tools because that might help me later on here in the round as we continue to place dice. We're back to the green. Green now has gone on an expedition. Almost lost my green guy here. Okay. No one else has gone on an expedition yet. So we're going to wait. We got dice to place. I'm not going to freak out yet. All right. Now, I think it might be wise to go for some energy. So I'm going to take this 4 and I'm going to put it right here. Okay? Now, how this works is if I was the only dice to be there, I would get 4 energy. And it would just, it would go in, or I would get 4 energy. Now, if someone else put a die there and it was larger than that 4, then they would put it to the right of that dice. No problem. But I would take my 4 and then they would take their 5. But let's say they put down a 3. If they did that, they would go on the left side of my die and they would slide my dice down. And what that does is this fantastic mechanic where you may think you're going to get 4, but if others go and put a 3 and then someone puts a 2 in front of that, you're now getting shifted further and further down the priority track. And if you really need that resource, you better hope that a bunch of it's there because it may run out before it gets to your die. Or if there's not, you may want to come in at the very end and put a die at the very beginning, like a 1 or a 2, or like 1 or a 2, pretty much, to be able to ensure that you get some resources. That's how the track is going to work for the resources as well as the doorstep. And I really like that mechanic. You'll see how that plays out when we execute our actions here. So that's what we're going to do there. We're going to go to blue. Blue is going to jump right up here and be the second person on this expedition and successfully completing this expedition. It is now completed at 10, and there's no reason for anybody else to go on there because there are now 2 players. There's 2 rewards. It's going to be it. So this expedition is pretty much closed out. The red is now going to go. This expedition is 9, and there's quite a bit of resources there. That's interesting. 3, 6, 9. I could put all my dice there. You know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to put this dice right here. I'm going to use both of my tools, cash those in, and I'm going to make this die a 5. It is now a 5. I only need 4 to now get to what I need there to complete that. And maybe I'm the only one on there, and that would be really good if that happened, because I would get both of those rewards. Back up to the green. Okay? The green is now going to go 4. They're going to take this 4, interesting, and we're going to put it, let's see, 4 would get me 1 to 2. I'm going to put that 4 right there. We're going to go to the doorstep and try to pick some folks up. Blue is going to take their 3. That's always a good number. And they're going to actually put it right there. Slide that green down, and now the 3 is going to be the first one that's going to get to take resources. Uh-oh, what's that mean for the green player? Am I going to run out? No, I'm not. There's still enough resources. We're still safe. Now the red's going to come in. Red's going to say, You know what? I'm going to place another die there, taking my total to 8. And now green's going to go and say, I'm going to take this 1, and I want to make sure that I can get something. Oh, what I want to do. You know what? I'm going to put this die right here on this building. A 1, and it's a green. Just a 1. I'm going to put it right there. Blue's now going to go. Blue's going to say, I'm going to take one of these 5s. I'm going to put it right here. Red's going to go and say, I'm going to take this and put it right there. Now red has completed this expedition all alone. Perfectly done. We've got a 6 left. And, oh, this is interesting. It's not going to do us anything there. I'm going to go right here because there's a ton of resources still left there. Blue is then going to grab their last one and say, you know what? I'm going right there because I wanted that building. We still got there. Blue never went there. The blue messed up because the blue wasn't able to get that second person from there. Well, they messed up. They went for the building. That's okay, all right? They still get their building. They still get at least 1, and they're bulking up on a ton of resources. Not a problem. They can come back second round and make an impact. Here comes red with the final 3, and what's red going to do? Red is going to train. So we're going to go right here with a 3, and a 3 is going to give us a military, and we're going to train that pioneer up as a military. Now, we could have took pioneers on our expedition with us. It would have given us 1 more on the pip, and it's the only way in this game that you can actually increase a 6-sided die to be worth more than 6, is by taking pioneers on expeditions. But we didn't decide to do that, okay? So now what we're going to do is we got all the dice placed, and now you can see that we sort of, as 3 different players within one mind, and a little bit of bears, needed to program out how that round would go. And trying to keep in mind of our nasty hurricane, or not a hurricane, our nasty hailstorm that's going to happen here when we get to phase 4, which the green player might have messed up because they do have the most dice. Well, it's going to be equal for the green and blue here, and they have the most dice here. So hopefully they really get some good amount of resources to offset that hailstorm. Here's another thing you got to keep in mind. At the end of, once we execute everything out, you got to have enough energy to feed each one of your colonists. If you don't, you lose the colonists. So that's something else you got to keep in mind when it comes to these resources. So you will find rounds where you roll these dice and you just get the minimum amount of resources. And let's say that's the only resources that's there. It's going to be a tough round. And you want to keep that in mind, especially if you already have quite a few colonists that are out on the board that you need to take care of. All right, we're going to come start right here and we're going to execute. Now, beautiful. The red, all 3 of these dice come back. The red is going to get a expedition badge. They were the only person that went on this expedition, so they get both of these rewards. Sweet. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 energy and 1, 2, 3, 4 stone. We'll put that all right there in their reserves. Excellent. Okay, this one is now discarded and done. We're now going to go here, and we have the green having a 6 and the blue having a 4. The green is the highest pip count here, so they will be the first choice. The blue will be the second choice. So we'll take those off. We'll give those dice back for now. And the green's going to say, you know what? I was going to go with the tools, but you know what? I'm going to go with the tools because I'm going to bank on the fact of being able to get some resources because of how my dice are positioned here. So I'm going with the tools. That's getting me 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. I got 4 tools. That's really going to pay off for me. Tools are worth, again, victory points at the end of the game as well. So if you want to really build those up, that's another strategy. You don't have to necessarily use them. Just acquire them and use them as victory points at the end. All right. Blue got the second shot at that one, and they are only left with 4 minerals they can get, but that's good for the blue. They got bulked up on some minerals. They're going to get pretty bulked up here because they really nailed it on the minerals on that one. This is now done expedition. Moving on to the vents. Here we're going to do the blue gets 3. So 1, 2, 3 coming in. That's now done. And the green gets 4. And we do have 4 left over. Perfect. So we're able to just clear that right out. We now move on to the next one. We've got the blue getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Blue's really stacking it up now. And what the blue's going to decide to do, and they can do this at any point in time, is cash in 5 and store 1. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to store that one right here. So now we have a stored energy. worth victory points at the end of the game. Now, we're going to take that off. Green has 6. Excellent payday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These will just stay here for the next area of the game. Okay, so we're just going to put that right there. All the good. Pull the green die back. Excellent. Moving along. We're now going to move to the gantry. Uh-oh, that's where the old hailstorm takes place. So it says, players with the most dice in the gantry and the players with the most dice in the doorstep lose 3. Okay, so now the way this is worded on this card, since it uses the word players twice, I'm going to play that as these are 2 separate incidents that could happen. Because it does say the players with the most dice in the gantry and the players with the most dice in the doorstep lose 3. So right now we've got green and blue. They are equal. So I'm going to say they both lose 3. And it's resources, okay? So you can choose amongst your energy and your minerals. You know what? I'm going to take 3 from green on the minerals, and I'm going to take 3 from blue on the minerals. We're going to put that back. And then green, well, we got hit there again. So let's just take 1, 2, and then I'm going to take 3. So that's the way I'm going to do that, and that's how our event is going to play out. So that kind of hit green a little bit on those minerals. They had quite a few, kind of got knocked down there. So now what's going to happen is we're going to say wherever these dice are, even if you have 1, if you're the only die there, that's how this one works. Just highest die count takes the building. Green is going to take this one. So now I have a new building, a crystal foundry. This is pretty cool. And if I can fill it up with 2 colonists, I will get some extra minerals from that. I can fill it with engineers. So we'll put that right there, and we'll take this back. And blue went with the manufactory, which if I can put 2 engineers there at the end of every round, I will get to activate this building and gain 2 tools. So that's really good. Put that there and build that out. All right, and that's the only thing that we have then at the gantry. Now we're going to move on to the doorstep. Well, lucky green, they had a 5, and a 5 says, a 4, and a 4 says 1 to 2 of these colonists can be picked up. They're 2 energy each. Okay, let's be careful. If I have to use 2 energy, I only have 3 left, and that's enough. So what we're going to do is, no, that's not enough, because I'd have to use 4. I wouldn't have enough to feed them. So I can only pick up 1 person. So I'm going to pick up an engineer and pull them over into my shelter, and that's going to cost me 2 resources to be able to do that. Now that's done. Green's off the board. We're now going to move to 6. Blue trained up a pioneer as an engineer, and this is a set amount. Once these are gone, they're gone. That's all it's available for the game. We're going to pull that out. That's now done. This is now removed from the game because it has been permanently turned into an engineer. Put that there in our shelter. We're going to pull the red, which was a 3, giving us a military, pulling out that pioneer, grabbing a military, pulling it in, discarding it from the game. All right, this red, we're going to just pull it right back because that executed immediately early in the round, and now we are back around to the very beginning. And that's going to be the execution of everything and of how that's going to play out. And you can see how we had to think about the programming of that placement as we did that execution. Now, there's a couple more things we need to do to end out the round, and we're going to come to these boards, and it's going to tell us that right here on the board. So, end of round. You may perform 1 colonist, move and swap. So I'm going to go ahead and take this colonist, move him out of this shelter and into this underground facility, and place him right there and getting him locked in. This player is going to actually move that person out and place him right there as well. And there's nothing really I could do with this military because there's nothing yet that this player technically has building-wise, so there's no reason to really move that around. So that's good. Now what we're going to do is activate your fully staffed ocean buildings. Well, I don't have any fully staffed ocean buildings within this first round. I wasn't able to do that. I didn't think ahead well enough for that 1 player that was going for those 2 engineers, so I wasn't able to complete that. All right, now we're going to pay 1 energy per colonist in your shelters. Okay, so how we're going to do this is we're going to say, these here are buildings. This is how I understand it. These here are buildings. This here is a shelters, per what it's called. So we're going to say that anything that's still left in the shelters, we're going to pay that energy to. So we have 1 here, so that's going to cost us 1. we have nobody in the shelter here, and we have one pioneer in a shelter there. So we're going to pull that out as well. We're going to go ahead and just say for this prototype edition that these colonists here are in these buildings. They're self-contained in those buildings, and we really have to pay for the ones that are still hanging out in the shelters. But you can see how that mechanic works out there. You are going to have to pay resources as you get those buildings built out over the course of the game. And whatever's left in your shelters, you're going to have to pay resources to keep that colonist surviving. Okay? And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to refresh the game board. And that's the same thing that we did on the setup when we first started the video. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put 2 more of our expeditions out. Those are going to be the new ones. We're going to select a new event for this round. This is going to be the volcanic seaquake. Ooh, that sounds deadly. And that's on G, so that's going to move right here. And then we're going to roll the die again. We're going to see 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to put that, roll. We're going to put that. We're going to put buildings out. All the players +1, and we're going to reset the doorstep. So you can see we'll just refresh the board, and then we'll go into our next round of play. And you can see just how much this game has to offer and how much that's here just within the one round that we just played together. Or I played, by myself, well, with Bear's help. You can see just how much is available to you as a player when you play. It isn't just a simple worker placement game. You really are doing some programming. You're really trying to get really strategic in how you place those dice, and not just the position of where you place them, but the count of pip that's on the die when you put it down. That's all working for or against the player round to round, and every round is going to be different. Trust me, when you play a full game of this, every round is going to be very, very different. It's going to feel different. It's going to execute different. And that's why I love this game. It's extremely satisfying. When you get done with the 6 rounds, you truly feel like this colonist that went to Europa and built out shelters and buildings and collected resources and tried to be as successful as you could in colonizing Europa. And that is just, if the fact that they were able to do that, use this theme, really make everything that happens in the game really draw into that theme and be very thematic. That's why this is a big thumbs up. This is something definitely, team, I recommend you go check out again on September the 12th, the Artemis Project. Check it out. So hit that like, click the subscribe below to join the team. Roll them crits. This has been the McGuire Review, and we'll see you next time, Bear. Let's go colonize.